Rodrigo and Rosalia, along with their spirited 5-year-old son Lucas, set out for a day of excitement and wonder at the city park's grand fair. As they approached the bustling fairgrounds, the air was thick with the tantalizing sense of carnival food, and the sounds of laughter and cheerful music filled the atmosphere. Lucas's eyes sparkled with uncontainable excitement as he envisioned himself soaring on the thrilling rides, savoring the creamy delight of ice cream, and indulging in the sugary cloud of cotton candy. His anticipation was infectious, and the entire family was swept up in the contagious excitement of the day. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. The weather was wonderfully temperate, casting a pleasant glow over the lively scene. The fair was teeming with a diverse crowd, parents guiding their wide-eyed children through a world of enchantment, groups of teenagers challenging their skills at the shooting range with competitive spirit, and elderly couples enjoying the nostalgic strains of street musicians as they danced gracefully in each other's arms. The park was transformed into a vibrant tapestry of joy and camaraderie, where children delighted in gentle pony rides and toy cars, and the older generation reveled in the music and dance, creating a perfect harmony of youthful exuberance and seasoned grace. However, amidst the enchanting whirl of colors and sounds, a sudden and crushing wave of anxiety washed over Rodrigo and Rosalia. Amid the festive chaos, their little Lucas had wandered away, lost in the throes of his playful chase after the pigeons that darted around the central fountain. The realization of his absence hit Rosalia with a gut-wrenching jolt. Her heart raced, and her voice, tinged with fear and desperation, pierced through the carnival's clamor. Where could our little one be? She cried, her hands trembling as she searched. Rodrigo's face, once bright with joy, now mirrored the deepening terror as he stammered, "He was just here a moment ago." Panic set in as the young couple began their desperate search, their minds spinning with a frantic urgency. They called out for their son, describing him in vivid detail, a curly-haired boy dressed in a red shirt and green shorts, hoping someone might have seen him amidst the sea of faces. They approached passing strangers, their eyes pleading for any scrap of information, but the crowd's indifferent shakes of their heads only intensified their dread. The sheer volume of people, each absorbed in their own experiences, made it nearly impossible to single out a small child lost in the throng. Rodrigo and Rosalia's hearts pounded with a profound sense of loss and fear, their breaths coming in ragged gasps as they wove through the crowd. Every second stretched into an eternity, their worry growing with each passing moment. The joyous cacophony around them faded into a distant murmur as their focus narrowed on the desperate task of finding their beloved Lucas. The park, once a place of delight, now felt like a labyrinth of anxiety and anguish. Every face they glimpsed, every voice they heard, became a potential clue or a fleeting hope. Their minds raced with countless scenarios, their hearts aching with visceral fear as they continued their search, hoping against hope that their precious child would soon be found safe and sound amidst the vibrant chaos of the fair. Where could he possibly be? Rosalia's voice trembled with distress. Her mind raced with dark scenarios, the fear of her son being kidnapped clawing at her heart. Rodrigo, despite the storm of fear brewing inside him, tried to offer solace. "Don't worry, my love. We'll find him." "I promise," he said, attempting to sound reassuring, though his own heart was gripped by an icy dread. His thoughts raced with the terrible possibility that Lucas might have wandered out of the park and into the busy streets. "Maybe we should separate," Rodrigo suggested, his voice steady but anxious. "I'll head towards the exit and check the surrounding streets. He might have tried to find the car if he remembered where we parked. You should go to the Green Bridge and look for him there." Rosalia nodded, her eyes brimming with tears she struggled to contain. With a final, fleeting look at her husband, she turned and sprinted towards the Green Bridge, a local landmark renowned for its lush ivy-covered walls. The bridge, with its ivy forming a verdant curtain and the gentle stream flowing beneath it, was a favorite retreat for many. On warm summer evenings, it was a cherished spot for relaxation. Panting heavily, Rosalia reached the bridge and began calling out for Lucas, her voice carrying a mix of hope and desperation. Just as she felt her heart sinking further, a burst of children's laughter reached her ears. The sound was a beacon of hope, leading her to rush towards it. She pushed aside the thick curtain of ivy and stepped into the semi-darkness beneath the bridge. Her eyes needed a moment to adjust to the dim light, but she soon made out two children playing gleefully. They were darting around, taking turns chasing each other in a game of pure joy. Rosalia called out with a voice quivering between relief and fear. Her heart leaped as she heard her son's familiar voice respond. "Mom," the sound of her child's voice was a balm to her anxious soul. Tears of relief streamed down her face as Lucas ran into her arms, clinging tightly to her. "You scared me so much, sweetheart," Rosalia whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "You can't run away from Mommy and Daddy like that." Lucas looked up at her with wide, apologetic eyes. "Sorry, Mommy. I was playing here with my new friend." Leah. Rosalia's gaze then fell upon a little girl, around 4 years old, with curly chestnut hair and a face smeared with dirt. "Where are your parents?" Rosalia asked gently, her concern now extended to this new child. Leah responded with a serious tone, "They're probably looking for you. My mommy is somewhere nearby, playing the flute to earn some money for us." As Leah's words faded, Rosalia could indeed hear the faint strains of a flute's melody in the distance. "And my grandpa," Leah added with a hint of sadness. "He's been so heartbroken he stopped talking. He's silent all the time, like a fish." Rosalia, her heart aching with empathy for both Lucas and Leah, gently embraced her son once more. Despite the lingering worry, the sight of her child safe and sound, and the comforting presence of Leah, helped soothe the frayed edges of her anxiety. As she prepared to leave the bridge with Lucas, her mind was already filled with gratitude for the small miracles that had restored her faith in the day's promise of joy and security. Poor thing, Rosalia thought, her heart aching for the young girl. She crouched down to Leah's level and gently said, "I'm going to take you to your mommy now. Lucas and I need to head home." "No, Mommy, I want to play a little more with Leah," Lucas protested, his face pleading. Rosalia shook her head with a firm but loving tone. "It's too late now, sweetheart. You're tired, and we need to go home." "But I can sleep here," Lucas countered, a stubborn edge in his voice. Rosalia's eyebrows arched in surprise. "Sleep here, under the bridge?" she asked, unable to comprehend where her son had picked up such an idea. "Yes," Lucas insisted with surprising enthusiasm. "Leah and her family do it." He pointed towards a haphazard pile of crumpled blankets and pillows strewn over a bed of dry grass, hidden in the shadows. Rosalia's heart sank as she realized the gravity of the situation. The cheerful little girl Lucas had befriended was living in these conditions. Her initial impulse was to whisk Lucas away from this unsettling environment as quickly as possible. Yet Leah's trusting eyes and innocent charm tugged at Rosalia's heartstrings, igniting a deep curiosity about her life and circumstances. "Come on," Rosalia said, taking Lucas and Leah's hands in hers and guiding them out from beneath the bridge. "I'm going to call Lucas's dad now, and then we'll go find your mom." She retrieved her phone from her bag, her fingers trembling slightly. When Rodrigo answered, his voice was filled with concern. "I found Lucas under the bridge," Rosalia explained, her relief evident. Rodrigo's sigh of relief was audible through the phone. "I'm coming to you right now," he said, his urgency palpable. Was he scared at all? "No, everything's fine," Rosalia reassured him. "He was just playing with a new friend. We're waiting for you at the bridge." She ended the call and turned to Leah. "Now, let's find your mom," she said gently. Leah's face lit up with hope as she nodded enthusiastically and dashed across the bridge towards the distant sound of the flute. Rosalia and Lucas followed closely, their hearts heavy with the day's revelations. On the far side of the stream, they came upon a small stage where street musicians often performed. Beneath the shade of gracefully drooping willow trees, a row of benches provided a respite for weary visitors. At the center of the stage, a young woman with cascading curly chestnut hair played the flute with a serene, almost ethereal grace. She wore a simple, wrinkled linen dress that flowed around her as she sat on a low stool, her eyes closed in deep concentration. Mama Leah's excited shout pierced the air as she climbed the wooden steps to the stage. I brought my new friends. Her voice was filled with pride and excitement, as if introducing a cherished secret to the world. Rosalia and Lucas approached the stage, their steps slow and measured, both moved by the tender scene before them. As they drew nearer, the melody of the flute mingled with the rustling of the willows, creating an ambience of gentle tranquility. The young mother and her son stood in awe, ready to learn more about Leah's world and the circumstances that had brought their paths together in such an unexpected, touching way. Startled by the sudden intrusion, the young woman's eyes flew open, and she abruptly stopped playing the flute. Her gaze fixed sternly on Leah as she said, "Leah, I've told you not to shout like that. You frightened me." Her worry quickly transformed into concern as she noticed her daughter's disheveled state. "You're covered in dirt again. We need to go to the river and clean you up properly." Leah, her voice tinged with apology, responded, "Sorry, Mommy. I'll wash up, but please let me introduce you to my new friends first." "I'm so happy to have met them." Her eagerness to share her new friendship contrasted sharply with the worry in her mother's eyes. Rosalia, observing the scene, was struck by the girl's articulate and thoughtful speech. "She seems like she comes from an educated background," she mused, her curiosity piqued. Lola's face, initially marked by tension, began to soften as she glanced at Rosalia and Lucas. The worried lines on her forehead relaxed, and a tentative smile began to emerge. "I'm Lola," she introduced herself with a touch of grace, despite her circumstances. "I'm a musician, though I must admit I'm not exactly at my best right now. Our family is going through a difficult period." Rosalia, moved by the young woman's candor and the gravity of her situation, responded, "I'm Rosalia, Lucas's mother. It's a pleasure to meet you." She couldn't shake the feeling that Lola and her family were indeed well-educated and cultured. Just then, Lucas interjected with innocent curiosity, "Leah mentioned that your grandfather went mad. Is that why you're having a hard time?" Rosalia shot her son a stern look, her heart softening as she realized he didn't fully grasp the complexity of the situation. "Forgive Lucas," she said, turning to Lola with an apologetic smile. "He's still quite young and doesn't fully understand." Lola, however, responded with a gentle demeanor, turning her attention to Lucas. "It's all right," she said kindly. "I appreciate your concern." Lucas beamed with pride at the acknowledgement. Lola took a deep breath and continued, her voice trembling slightly. "It's not just that. Our house burned down a week ago, and we've been living on the streets since then." As she spoke, tears welled up in her eyes, escaping down her cheeks. Leah, her small frame quivering with empathy, reached out to comfort her mother, gently stroking her hand. Rosalia felt a wave of compassion and sorrow for Lola and her family. The reality of their plight was stark and heart-wrenching. Seeing the young girl's tender attempts to soothe her mother only deepened Rosalia's empathy. The day, which had started with such simple pleasures, had unfolded into an unexpected and moving encounter, revealing the profound struggles of a family she had just met but felt deeply connected to. "Oh, that's truly heartbreaking," Rosalia said with genuine empathy, her eyes softening as she absorbed Lola's tragic tale. "So, your house wasn't insured?" she asked gently. Lola nodded, her expression one of resigned sadness. "No, it wasn't. We had just moved here from another city where I grew up. After my mother passed away, my father struggled deeply with the loss. It's been over a year now, and he just can't seem to move on. I hoped that relocating might help him heal, but it only seemed to make things worse. Lola explained, her voice catching as she fought back tears. At that moment, Rodrigo appeared, a smile lighting up his face as he approached Rosalia. "Here I am," he said cheerfully, momentarily unaware of the gravity of the situation. "Are we ready to head home?" "Just a moment," dear Rosalia replied, her tone now infused with a new sense of urgency. "Let me introduce you to Lola and her daughter Leah. They've endured a terrible misfortune. Their house was destroyed by fire, they didn't have insurance, and now they're living on the streets." Rodrigo's smile faded, replaced by a look of deep sympathy. "I'm truly sorry to hear that," he said earnestly. As Rodrigo extended his condolences, Rosalia's mind was racing. She gently took Rodrigo's arm, guiding him a few steps away from the group while Leah and Lucas continued to play joyfully, oblivious to the adult conversation. "Rodrigo," she began, her voice tinged with concern. "From what I can gather, Lola and her father seem to come from a highly educated background. She's a musician and supports her family through her art. They've been incredibly unfortunate. Since the fire, they've been forced to sleep under a bridge. It's simply awful." Rodrigo's face grew somber as he listened. "It's devastating," he said with a shake of his head. "And the most troubling part is that such misfortune can strike anyone." "Yes," Rosalia agreed, her heart heavy with empathy. "They appear to be genuinely decent people who've fallen on hard times. I was thinking, what if we could offer them some help?" Rodrigo looked at her, surprise and curiosity evident in his eyes. "Help? How?" he asked. "I was thinking we could offer them our country cottage for a while," Rosalia suggested. "It's empty most of the time, and it might provide them with some stability and relief from their current situation." Rodrigo considered Rosalia's suggestion thoughtfully, his expression reflecting the weight of the decision. "Are you certain they're trustworthy?" he asked, a hint of doubt in his voice. Rosalia nodded firmly. "Yes, I believe they are. Their circumstances are dire, and I can see that they've genuinely been through a lot. I trust my instincts on this one." Rodrigo took a deep breath, weighing the options before him. "All right," he said finally, his voice filled with resolve. "I'll trust your judgment. If you believe it's the right thing to do, then we'll offer them our cottage." Rosalia's heart swelled with relief and gratitude. She returned to Lola, her eyes reflecting both compassion and hope. "Lola," she said gently, "my husband and I would like to offer you our country cottage to stay in for a while. We hope it can provide you and your family with some comfort and stability during this difficult time." Lola's eyes widened in astonishment, tears of gratitude spilling down her cheeks. "Oh, thank you," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "This means more than words can express." As Leah and Lucas continued their game, unaware of the life-changing offer unfolding before them, Rosalia and Rodrigo felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Amid their worries, they had found a way to offer hope and help to those in desperate need, making the day's events take on a new, deeply meaningful perspective. The young couple approached Lola, who had paused her flute playing once more, her face a mix of hope and anxiety. "Lola," Rosalia began, her voice carrying an earnest tone, "we have a proposal for you." She glanced at Rodrigo, who took a deep breath, summoning the courage to voice their offer. Rodrigo stepped forward, his eyes meeting Lola's with sincerity. "We own a country house that's currently unoccupied," he said, his voice steady but compassionate. "If you'd like, you and your family are welcome to stay there for a while. It's a quiet, serene place, and we hope it might offer you some respite and stability while you get back on your feet." Lola's eyes widened in disbelief. "Are you serious?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as if she couldn't quite process the generosity being offered to her. "Yes," Rodrigo confirmed with a nod. "It's the least we can do to support you during this challenging time." Lola was momentarily at a loss for words. Her eyes brimmed with tears, overwhelmed by the unexpected kindness. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice breaking with emotion. "Thank you so much. We would be incredibly grateful for your help." Rosalia and Rodrigo quickly provided Lola with their country house address and reached out to their housekeeper to prepare the house for their new guests. As they wrapped up their visit to the fair, they felt a profound sense of relief and fulfillment. Later that evening, they received a call from Lola. "We're ready to move in," she said, her voice tinged with gratitude. "Thank you so much for your kindness." The following day, Lola, Leah, and her grandfather moved into the country house, a fresh start for their family. Rodrigo and Rosalia, having done something truly meaningful, felt a deep sense of satisfaction knowing they had made a positive impact on someone's life. As they left the fair and headed home, Rosalia and Rodrigo exchanged a look of mutual contentment. They were not only pleased to have had an enjoyable day at the fair, but also deeply fulfilled by their decision to help a family in dire need. Their day, once filled with simple pleasures, had been transformed into something profoundly significant and rewarding. "Then I'll wait in the living room," Rosalia said warmly. "I'll finish up here and bring some drinks shortly," Lola, with a grateful nod, promised not to rush. "Take your time," Rosalia replied, her voice filled with gentle assurance. As Rosalia settled into the living room, her gaze was irresistibly drawn to the array of paintings that adorned the walls. Each piece seemed to tell its own story, capturing moments frozen in time. Her steps were deliberate as she wandered from one canvas to the next, each artwork revealing a fragment of the artist's soul. She paused in front of the first painting, a vivid portrayal of a sunlit field with a young girl standing amidst the tall grass. The colors were rich, almost palpable, evoking the warmth of a summer day. Rosalia inhaled deeply, feeling an unexpected connection with the scene. For a fleeting moment, it was as though she could almost feel the breeze, smell the fresh-cut grass, and hear the distant hum of nature encapsulated in that single moment captured by the artist's brush. Suddenly, her reverie was interrupted by a voice, a deep, resonant tone that carried the weight of years and experience. "I remember this field as if it were yesterday," the elderly voice said, causing Rosalia to startle. She turned to see Lola's father standing before her, his presence both commanding and gentle. The unexpected encounter left her momentarily speechless. "It was a sweltering May day," the old man continued, his voice laden with nostalgia. "Esmeralda and I were riding our bicycles and decided to pause here, in this very field. It was the day of our first date." Rosalia's curiosity was piqued. "Esmeralda, she's Lola's mother, isn't she?" she inquired cautiously, her voice tinged with both respect and empathy. The old man nodded, his eyes shimmering with unshed tears. The weight of memory and loss was palpable in his gaze. "Would you mind telling me how you two met?" Rosalia asked softly, taking a seat on the edge of the couch. Her tone was gentle, inviting him to share a cherished part of his past. Lola's father offered a wistful smile, sitting down opposite her. There was a moment of silence as he seemed to search through the corridors of his mind, his eyes clouded with the mist of reminiscence. Finally, with a heavy sigh, Leah's grandfather began to recount his story. Each word was imbued with the tenderness and gravity of a life well lived, a narrative that wove together moments of joy, love, and the bittersweet passage of time. As he spoke, the living room seemed to transform into a space where the past and present coalesced, and Rosalia listened intently, moved by the intimate glimpse into the history and heart of this remarkable family. "I first laid eyes on Esmeralda when I arrived in the quaint college town in the south of the country. It was a sunlit afternoon, and there she was, seated gracefully on a bench in the park beneath a sprawling peach tree. She was engrossed in a book, completely absorbed in her world. She wore a delicate white dress adorned with pink flowers, and the gentle breeze played with the ruffles of the fabric, making them flutter whimsically. Her beauty was captivating. She was tall and slender, and her long, reddish chestnut hair cascaded around her face in soft waves. She would occasionally brush it away with a delicate hand, her concentration never wavering as she turned page after page, oblivious to everything around her. Books had always been her passion, and it was clear that she was lost in one of her favorite stories. I was mesmerized, unable to tear my eyes away from her. I wanted to sit beside her, to engage her in conversation, but my hopes were dashed when a tall, confident young man approached her. The sight of him calling her name made her flinch slightly, but then she offered him a warm smile. He took a seat next to her, handing her a sandwich wrapped in paper, and they shared a lunch that seemed filled with laughter and easy companionship. I stood there, burning with envy, aching to be in his place. After watching them for what felt like an eternity, I was overcome with frustration and fled the park, my heart heavy with disappointment. I thought the image of her in that white dress would fade with time, but she began to haunt my dreams. Night after night, day after day, the longing to see her again consumed me. Then, one fateful day, my wish was unexpectedly granted. A friend invited me to a comedy screening at the local cinema, and despite my reluctance to go with anyone but her, I accepted the offer. We arrived just before 8 and stood in line at the box office. I was idly studying the posters on the walls when a familiar, enchanting laugh pierced the air. I turned my head, and there she was, Esmeralda, the very vision from the park. Today she wore a charming blue dress adorned with tiny polka dots. The dress cinched at her slender waist and flared out elegantly to her dainty ankles, while her white sandals added a touch of grace to her ensemble. Her hair was styled in a high ponytail, and long silver earrings dangled delicately from her ears. She looked more radiant than ever, and I found myself standing there, awestruck and speechless. However, my elation was short-lived. Standing beside her was the same tall young man from the park. He was animatedly recounting something, and she was laughing heartily at his jokes. The pang of jealousy returned with a vengeance. It was as if fate had played a cruel trick on me, keeping her just out of my reach once more. Why was he the one at her side and not me? Sensing my gaze, Esmeralda suddenly looked directly into my eyes. I distinctly felt myself blush as she squinted slightly and bit her lower lip. The intensity of her gaze was so captivating that for a moment I was completely disoriented. Then, she quickly looked away and didn't glance in my direction again. My friend, noticing my distraction, followed my line of sight and raised an eyebrow. "Are you smitten with that girl?" he asked with a teasing grin. "Do you know her?" I asked, hoping for some useful information. Instead of answering, my friend simply nodded. "She's studying at the philological faculty. They have the most beautiful girls there, yes, she's beautiful. But that tall guy is always with her. I can't even get close to her," I confessed, frustration evident in my voice. My friend glanced again at Esmeralda and her companion. "She looks at him like that," he said with a whistle. "Looks like you don't have a chance." Old man, his words stung, but I was resolved to forget the girl in the blue dress. Yet my resolve didn't last long. Soon after, I saw her again in the library. She was wearing a soft yellow blouse and a pink skirt, her hair flowing freely over her shoulders. She had donned a pair of glasses, giving her a smart, serious appearance. She was alone, despite knowing she had a boyfriend. I felt an irresistible urge to approach her. It seemed like a rare opportunity I couldn't afford to miss. Grabbing the first book one found on the shelf, I approached her table. "May I sit here?" I asked, my voice trembling. My knees felt weak, and my heart raced as Esmeralda looked up at me, her surprise evident. I couldn't tell if she recognized me. She glanced around, as if to point out that nearly every table in the hall was available, then gave me a playful smile. "Of course, sit down," she said, rearranging a few books to make room for me. I sat down, trying to act nonchalant as I pretended to read the book one had chosen. Unfortunately, it was an advanced mathematics textbook, something completely outside my realm of understanding. Peeking over her shoulder, I saw that she was reading Plato. The contrast between our chosen reading material was striking, but I was too captivated by her presence to let it deter me. "Do you like philosophy?" I asked, my voice feeling strangely unfamiliar to me. Esmeralda looked up, and I braced myself for a reprimand for intruding. Instead, she smiled warmly. "He has interesting thoughts," she replied, then returned to her book. I glanced back at the complex formulas in my book, struggling to understand them, but soon realized I didn't need to ask more. Suddenly, Esmeralda broke the silence. "I'm hungry. Would you like to go to the cafeteria and grab a snack?" I stared at her, stunned. Was she inviting me? "I just hate eating alone," she admitted with a shrug of her delicate shoulders. I couldn't turn down the invitation. As we walked down the stairs, my heart raced with excitement, but I couldn't shake off the worry that her boyfriend might show up, which dampened my enthusiasm a bit. We descended into the almost empty cafeteria. Esmeralda chose a table by the window and sat down, while I took the seat opposite her. "What would you like?" I asked, handing her the menu. "I love the croissant with cream cheese and blueberries here." "How about you?" she replied. I admitted that I rarely visited cafes and shrugged. "I think I'll try your favorite croissant and a cappuccino," I decided. I placed our order at the counter and was told it would be ready in about 5 minutes. When I returned to the table, I looked at Esmeralda cautiously. "So you study advanced mathematics?" she asked, squinting slightly as she looked at me. I felt like she could see through my facade. "Actually, no," I confessed. "Sometimes I just need a distraction. I'm a historian." "Oh, I didn't expect that," Esmeralda said, clearly surprised. "So you're also a humanities person?" "We have a lot in common," I blurted out, feeling my cheeks redden. I was grateful for the easy conversation and the unexpected connection we were making. Fortunately, the waiter arrived with our order, and we eagerly dug in. I was hungrier than I realized. And the croissant lived up to Esmeralda's recommendation. It was delicious. I found myself feeling unexpectedly at ease with her, like I could just be myself. It was a different kind of comfort compared to my usual experiences with other girls. The conversation flowed naturally, and for a while, I forgot everything else around us. Then, the tall friend I had seen with Esmeralda appeared at our table. I froze, unsure of how to react. "There you are. I've been looking everywhere for you," he said to Esmeralda, completely ignoring me. I expected her to look embarrassed or nervous, but instead she greeted him with a cheerful smile. "Oh, Pablo, sorry I didn't warn you. Were you waiting for me upstairs?" "Yes, in the philosophy literature section," Pablo replied, pulling out a chair to join us. To my surprise, there was no hint of jealousy or tension from him. He didn't seem bothered by my presence, and Esmeralda acted as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "Oh, I didn't introduce you to," Esmeralda suddenly realized, glancing at me with a hint of embarrassment. "This is," she hesitated, then turned to me. "I'm sorry, but I didn't ask your name with that." She giggled, and Pablo joined in with a chuckle. "Oh, Esmeralda, you're always in your world, sitting in a cafe with someone and not even knowing his name," Pablo teased. I was struck by the way Esmeralda's name sounded beautiful and unforgettable. "My name is Ernesto," I said, with a smile. Just like Hemingway, Esmeralda's eyes lit up with recognition. "Easy to remember," she said, taking a sip of her cappuccino. "And this is Pablo, my best friend. We're inseparable, like the two sides of a coin." "How long have you known each other?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Since I was born," Pablo grinned. "We're neighbors and went to school together. We used to fight all the time, but now we're best friends." As we continued talking, I realized that this was just the beginning of something special. The way Esmeralda and Pablo interacted, their easygoing nature, and the shared history they had made me feel like I had stumbled into a storybook, a story where I hoped to find my place. And there you have it, the touching story of Ernesto and Esmeralda, a tale of unexpected encounters and lasting connections. we've explored how a chance meeting can lead to profound relationships and the impact of small acts of kindness. So what have you learned from this story? Is it the significance of taking chances, the importance of genuine connections, or perhaps the value of being kind to those around you? We'd love to hear from you. Please share one key takeaway from this video and how you plan to apply it in your own life in the comments below. Your insights could inspire others. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave your comment, like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Your support helps us continue bringing meaningful stories and lessons to you. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.